Nahmaduhu ta'ala wa nashkuruhu ta'ala. We have been very blessed and we are very fortunate that over approximately half of the Quran has been completed. There are many different themes that have been covered. In particular, I'd like to talk about one that we all are very familiar with, but I would like to talk about it from a very personal point of view and from a point of view of hoping that it has a true impact on our families. And it's based on the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقضى ربك ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه وبالوالدين إحسانا إما يبلغن عندك الكبر أحدهما أو كلاهما فلا تقل لهما أف ولا تنهرهما وقل لهما قولا كريما. Allah, after bringing to the forefront that it is our obligation and duty to worship Allah, and after the worshipping of Allah, obviously it is to follow the practices of our beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But thereafter, the ayah makes it very clear that perhaps, of course, if you have parents or have been blessed with parents, then it is our duty, our obligation, whether it is both or whether it is one parent, that we will not take part in saying uff towards them. Now, what is the definition of uff? My brothers and sisters, we're not even talking about abusive language at this point. Uff refers to, for example, just that minor, according to some, feeling that takes place of negativity towards a parent, which causes us to say things like, oh, I don't care, I don't want to do that. Or it's showing what we'll call in today's time a form of attitude. And we have to understand that when we are disrespectful to our parents, we are also showing a type of disrespect to the Prophet of Allah and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To show you and I the importance of parents, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was having a conversation with a given individual, and the individual was naturally asking, what is amongst the best things for me to do? Now, Islam in the Western world is given a bad rap, because it's as if the first thing we have to do in life is kill people, hurt people, and blow up people. When you study the seerah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is not exactly what we see. As a matter of fact, this person comes to talk to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, amongst the first things you must do, which is most beloved and liked to Allah by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is number one, perform salah. Number one, perform salah. He didn't say, give all your money in the path of Allah. Go and help every poor person out there. Go and pray all the time. And go and take part in acts of violence to show how greatly you love Allah and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No. He says, number one, go and pray. And this is what the month of Ramadan is all about. It's not about just fasting. It's about connecting with our Creator on a spiritual level. Thereafter he says, O Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, thereafter what? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave him advice, be kind, be loving, be good to your parents. Thereafter, when he said, what do I do thereafter? Thereafter the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, defend your land, take part in striving in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So imagine a patriotic person in Islam is not the one that comes with badges of honor that says, I destroyed or hurt so many people. No, the badge of honor is our connection with Allah through salah, number one, and our connection with Allah through our parents. That is why it comes in Mishkat Sharif and Darul Manthur and many places, that if a person wants Jannah, they have to not only be good to their parents, but parents are our heaven as well as our hell. I repeat, parents are our heaven as well as our hell. Meaning that if we are good to them, we are kind to them, by the way, I'm not just talking about Muslim parents. Sometimes a person may be a Muslim. The parents may be non-Muslim. That doesn't mean that just because they are non-Muslim, we have the right to say, well, I'm better than you, so I don't have to do this for you, and I don't have to do that for you. No, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim, our duty is to be good to them. Yes, when they tell us to do something wrong in nature, anyone who tells us to do something wrong, whether it's a Muslim or non-Muslim, then we have to say, on this matter, please excuse me. I'm afraid I cannot continue further on this given aspect of wrong. However, on areas where we can get along, let's continue working together. And this is the sign of a believer. So it becomes very important to realize this. That is why the Prophet of Allah says in many different places, a father's dua is accepted regarding his children. Paradise is under the feet of the mother, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given her a very special position. Now this brings us to the next point. You know, children sometimes get very upset when we say all these things. They say, well, I must be good to my mom and dad, but they are not good to one another. My mom doesn't do X, Y, and Z for me. My dad doesn't do X, Y, and Z for me. Number one, regarding this, every individual will be held accountable for what they ought to have done, what they must do to you and I, or for you and I, and what we must do for them back in return. In social relations, it's a two-way street. I got to do things for you, and hopefully if I need some help, then you will assist. But it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. And likewise, parents and children have a two-way thing going. Parents have to make sure that the children are clothed, children are fed, children are sheltered, children are given social, physical, and mental well-being. There will not be unnecessary conflicts in the home. Conflict takes place everywhere, but not on a daily basis. Not banging doors, slamming doors, hurting people, yelling, screaming. Mother going and just crying all the time because the father is doing things he shouldn't be doing. Father using abusive language, etc., etc. I mean, sometimes some of these things may happen. But at the same time, we have to teach our children that once these things happen, there is a way in which we apologize. There is a way in which it's not always for a woman to apologize. It's not always for a man to just bring flowers after a conflict or whatever people do after a conflict. It's a two-way street. And sometimes there may be issues between a child and parent as well. And a parent has to acknowledge, maybe I was wrong in certain things regarding the child. And a child has to also realize when the parent says I was wrong, it doesn't give them now a trump card to sort of use it against the parents later on. Oh, dad, you acknowledge you were wrong. Now this is your punishment from me. No, this is not how we behave. In relationships, there is a lot of complexity. But what remains very, very important is that Allah has given children a certain role. And as children, we have to fulfill that role, not only to our parents, but to Allah. So you may think you are sort of being nice to a parent, but in reality, you are fulfilling what Allah wants you to fulfill. And this is very, very critical and important. And of course, the Quranic ayah also makes mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it such that a mother will go through a carrying period. A mother will go through challenges after she gives birth. A father will go through challenges in as far as raising this child, earning for this child, developing this child, keeping this child healthy. So I'd like to say to children one thing out there. We forget the sacrifice that parents go through. You know, if a mother and father are living alone, they can live in a one-bedroom apartment. But when they have a child, there's another room you may need. You get more children, maybe a third and fourth room you need. There's a price tag to that. And many children say, so what? I don't care. Why did they get me in this world? This is not the way a Muslim talks. They have to spend extra resources to feed the child and feed the children. They have to earn extra to clothe the child. They have to earn extra to put the child to school. So my brothers and sisters, let us not get into the conflict that parents sometimes may go through and use that against them. Let us appreciate the good they are doing for us. And inshallah, when we have children later on, hopefully the same will be reciprocated. I mean, we don't do good things because we want good things back in return. But if you do good unto others, inshallah, Allah will continue to do good for you as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and guide us at all times. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.